is John Paul and I'm introducing our podcast. Our group consists of Paul, Karen, Jamie, Clodagh and myself. Our podcast is about memory and adolescence. Memory in the simplest terms is how we encode, store and retrieve information. It's like how we think of back on a memory and then we think that leads on to another memory. And it's how nights begin with telling old stories with your family. Then on the other hand, adolescence in the simplest terms is the onset after puberty, in which the transition of a child becoming an adult. Our podcast today is going to be recorded in the classroom because after all we are becoming teachers and memory is huge in the student's life.
I'm Clodagh and today I'll be talking about the brain and maturity in the life of an adolescent. As we all know, a teenager's brain is different from an adult's. This is because they are going through the process called maturity. Maturity is the transition from dependence to interdependence. The human brain is at its most powerful between the ages 18 and 25. Many factors affect the development of the human brain. These can be positive or negative. These include sleep deprivation, anxiety, and dehydration. These are very prevalent in the life of a teenager. A teenager's brain is underdeveloped. This limits their ability to make mature decisions, and that's why teenagers often do stupid things. This area of the brain is the prefrontal cortex.
As welfare officer, how in your eyes do adolescents coming fresh out of secondary school become affected by drugs and alcohol?
I think when students come from secondary school and they're leaving cert, everything in college is new. There's a bit of freedom there. I suppose you might experience things in college that you didn't come across in secondary school, particularly, you're living at home when you're in secondary school, you're not like living with friends, new people, new experiences, nights out, nights in, you meet so many different people who will have their own experiences with drinking, drugs and crossing paths with different types of people. I suppose you experience things where you don't really experience that in the same extent in secondary schools. So I suppose that's kind of where college is a bit different. And most of them are over 18. So that kind of changes it from secondary school as well.
Perfect. And do you personally think that it has a major detrimental effect on their studies?
I think that varies by student. I think time-wise, if people get kind of caught up in the cycle of addiction, then, it can have serious effects. I know you spoke about memory, so if, obviously a higher usage of alcohol and drugs is going to affect not just your concentration levels, but your memory levels as well. But I suppose moderate use, obviously the more you use, the more the consequences. But it definitely has an effect. It can't have no effect.
Perfect. Thanks, William.
No problem at all. No problem.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'll be discussing teaching strategies with regard to memory in adolescence. As we all know, memory is very important in a student's life, and as future educators of adolescents, we need to know how to maximise memory retention. With regards to memory retention, 7 is the magic number. Short-term memory can retain 7 pieces of information for 20 to 30 seconds. Working memory then can retain 7 pieces of information for 20 to 30 minutes. And if the brain does not see fit that this memory is important, it will remove it and it won't go into your long-term memory. Stuff like storytelling, chunking and mnemonics are examples of ways we can appeal to this side of the memory in order to get the maximum effort out of our students and maximum grade. This picture shows the amygdala. The amygdala is the emotional centre of the brain. As my colleague Clodagh touched on previously, the adolescents have undeveloped prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain in which higher thinking occurs. As a result, teenagers are unable to think at a higher level and are forced then to think through the amygdala, which stores up an emotional response. How we can use this to our advantage as teachers is if we tell a story or give an example that students can relate to. Ever wondered how you can remember songs better than you can remember sheets of paper? That's because the brain remembers rhythm, rhyme and rap better than any other source. As shown by this picture, rap is very popular and it affects crowds as you can remember the lyrics and thus sing along with them. A common used technique by teachers nowadays is group work. Group work is a notion that was hardwired into our brain from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Back in prehistoric days, the first humans had better chance of survival working in groups, surviving from predators like dinosaurs. This has been hardwired into our brain from those days, and we do work better in group work, sharing and responding to other people's ideas and feelings. At the end of the day, how did we all get here? We put in a hard 6th year, hard 5th year, got the merits. That's because we practice, practice, practice. If we practice enough, something's bound to stick, lads.
Thanks for watching our podcast today, and hopefully you have a better understanding of memory and adolescence.